And we're back here on the National Hour. It's great to have you folks joining us here on Buckeye TV. And the last week in the NFL was an interesting one. We'll get to some of the bigger stories later, but starting out with the game, Cincinnati-Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. Jeff, this is a game that we picked, and I believe we both picked correctly as the Bengals won the game 20-10, taking out the Steelers.
Yeah, I raised the A.J. Green jersey for this one. I said Bengals win, but it was like 20-10. It wasn't a very pretty victory for Cincinnati. That was no. I mean, you had sloppy play, tipped passes for picks. The whole thing, it was hard to watch, honestly.
Yeah, you did have Giovanni Bernard, who showed up. He had 2 touchdowns. It wasn't a huge rushing game, just 38 yards, but ran for a touchdown, caught another. So you saw that explosiveness that you'd been talking about, seeing him as a prospect, and some of the stuff that you saw from Hard Knocks.
I mean, yeah, he was fast on the TV show Hard Knocks. I'm thinking if someone makes it, and like for fantasy owners, pick this guy up, rookie of the year candidate, maybe him. But if he gets that ball, he takes off like lightning for the end zone or just go up the field there. And the one touchdown he had, he almost took flight basically trying to get to that end zone, and he did. And it's one of these things where it's like the Bengals, they need someone like this, especially in this division where injuries are happening and the Bengals really can right the ship here. If you have a guy in Giovanni Bernard that's good, that can constantly come in games and score, Bengals, they would take the AFC North and could make a pretty deep run here in the playoffs this upcoming year.
Well, 1 is something. 2 is certainly starting to look like a trend, and now it's 2 games that Pittsburgh has played poorly offensively as they dropped to 0-2 for just the 5th time in a quarter century. The Steelers really looked bad offensively and could not get anything going against the Cincinnati defense.
I mean, to see Pittsburgh 0-2, it's just strange to see that in the stat line, especially 5th time in 25 years this has happened to them. Injuries happen, but of this magnitude with someone like Foot and Pouncey out for a year, those things that makes the fan base believe this is not our year, maybe next year. They look forward to it.
Yeah, losing a guy like Larry Foote is big.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Their starting center, Marquise Pouncey, that is huge, a huge loss.
I mean, it's for Pittsburgh, and already last year they struggled, and now your 2 key guys are out. James Harrison's left town for Cincinnati. It's one of these. It's just for the entire Pittsburgh organization. It's something that they haven't had in a while since 2002, where they opened up 0-2, but unlike 2002 when they made the playoffs, I see them having a tough time getting to 500 this season.
Well, speaking of ugly football, you saw the Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens going at it, the old Browns and the new ones, and it was not a pretty game either. But you look at the total offense, Cleveland 259 yards, Baltimore 296, not that impressive. But the difference was Baltimore got 2 touchdowns where the Browns got 2 field goals, and Baltimore pulled the game out, beating the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, really for Cleveland, they had more yards. You were thinking, hey, more yards, maybe more points, more opportunities to score. Really for Cleveland, they need to lock down. The problem is they can move the ball, but they just can't get in the end zone. Field goals are their friends right now. And no one has won football games off kicking field goals. And a team like Baltimore, the 2 touchdowns, very sloppy game that they had to get those 2 touchdowns. But it just happened to be enough this week. But look at what happened to Baltimore against Denver, where they just got completely trucked by Peyton Manning and the Broncos. Between Baltimore and Cleveland, both these teams, just like Pittsburgh, they're going to be on the struggle bus this entire year to try to make the playoffs.
Yeah, 14-6 final, Baltimore beating Cleveland. Not a particularly great game offensively for the Browns. Brandon Weeden, 21 of 33, 227 yards, and Trent Richardson just 58 yards on 18 carries. And you saw Weeden went out with an injury, a hand injury, and he's not going to miss the next game. So Brian Hoyer has been named the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
For Cleveland, it's the revolving carousel, the revolving door of quarterbacks are coming. You had a game with Tim Couch, then you had Derek Anderson, then you had Brady Quinn, then you had McCoy. Now it's another name to the whole list. And for Cleveland faithful, they're used to it, but they don't want to be used to it.
Well, 2 quarterbacks with a lot of promise in their future. Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick went at it on Sunday Night Football, and you saw Seattle pretty much with a blowout, 29-3, able to get some going offensively, but it was an old school football game, a lot of running, not a ton of passing yards, and Colin Kaepernick and Russell Wilson had that little bet before the game. The loser had to shave one eyebrow, so it'll be interesting to see if Kaepernick lives up to that, but nonetheless, Seattle winning the game.
Yeah, it was a big win for Seattle. Russell Wilson, 8 of 19, 142, 1 touchdown and a pick, but then looking at Kaepernick, he's played lights out his entire career basically, got the Niners to the Super Bowl, 13 of 28, 127, 3 interceptions. Not the best of nights for the young Colin Kaepernick, but it's a learning moment for him because you can say, look, I've done bad. I can't do much worse than this, especially against a team like Seattle, who's very good. I mean, I expect them to bounce back this upcoming week and from here on out for the rest of the season, but it's just the 1 week against a huge team, you didn't show up for it.
Well, two really good defenses going at it, too, and that's what really got lost in it. And Seattle's defense showed up and showed out in the game. You have to respect what they were able to do, holding the 49ers to just 3 points. So really impressive what the two defenses did. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. And so do you think Colin Kaepernick's going to shave his eyebrow?
I think so. There's just so I mean, the whole thing's gone viral basically, and it's one of these things where it's like, well, you didn't do it, we're gonna make you do it. So I guess for good press.
There you go.
Yeah, and yep, right there. It happened, but I guess social media like Twitter, Facebook, and just like the EA Sports whole campaign with it. Yeah, either way, if he didn't mean it, he was gonna have to do it anyway.
Oh, I mean, it's certainly a fun thing to have with these two quarterbacks going back and forth, jawing at each other. It certainly sets up for a fun rivalry for not just this year, but for down the road in the NFC West, Seattle and San Francisco going back and forth. So a game that we saw a couple of other young quarterbacks, Indianapolis and Miami. Ryan Tannehill was able to get the win for the Dolphins on the road, 24-20 in Indianapolis. Miami looked really good offensively. Tannehill had 319 yards, and it was spreading the ball around, and finally a big game for Mike Wallace.
Yeah, Mike Wallace, 9 catches, 115 yards. Charles Clay, 5 catches, 109. And then the former Buckeye Brian Hartline, 5 catches, 68 yards. I mean, Tannehill last year couldn't really get much on that receiving end. Now he's got 3 guys with some pretty good yardage in this game against the Colts. And the Colts, Andrew Luck there, that's a pretty big win going into Indianapolis for Miami.
I mean, everyone remembers RG3, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, all these first-year starters from last year breaking out. It was really impressive to see Ryan Tannehill, not just this year, but even last year when he outplayed Andrew Luck, but the Colts got the win. I mean, they were the better team between them and the Dolphins, but got the win last year. Ryan Tannehill put up over 400 yards of passing in that game. So it's great to see that he's developing into a nice quarterback, and nice to see a Buckeye be the beneficiary.
Oh, absolutely. Brian Hartline, the 5 catches, 68 yards. Sorry, I made a mistake. Charles Clay, he's not in the receiving end. He's in the fullback end. But really, those stat numbers of 5 catches, 109, you would almost think he's a receiver there with that kind of yardage because it's close to what Mike Wallace has. It's one of those things where Miami, they can start getting some momentum, especially at home. They could make a chase for that playoff spot, saying that the AFC North, you would thought two teams would get in there, maybe only one, so there's that one spot open for a potential playoff run for Miami.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, the AFC East is not exactly locked in stone. You saw what the Patriots have done so far with all of their injuries. That offense is not exactly crisp. Their defense is a work in progress. Miami, they can have an outside shot at the AFC East.
I mean, Miami,
2-0.
Miami, the last time you saw them in the playoff run was when Tom Brady got hurt. Matt Castle took over. Now Miami, the Patriots falling apart. They really nothing there in the receiving core there. And I guess for Miami, with a team that's led by Ryan Tannehill, this could be a big year for him, especially when you got Wallace, Clay, and Hartline that can all help you on the way to the playoffs.
Of course, our producer, Franz, is not letting us forget about the Buffalo Bills. E.J. Manuel has looked pretty impressive and had that come-from-behind win in the fourth quarter this past week. So, maybe the Bills do have a shot, Franz. E.J. 3. Okay.
3. Oh.
All right, we'll calm down on that for right now. But looking forward to the next game. Miami 2-0. Could they possibly legitimate? Another 2-0 team, Kansas City, really surprising a lot of people. And they were a 2-14 team last year, but they had 6 Pro Bowlers. The Chiefs are 2-0 with Andy Reid and Alex Smith at the helm. Is this team for real?
If it was anybody but Andy Reid, I would say no. But because Andy Reid's there and what he was able to do in Philadelphia, the 5 NFC title games in the Super Bowl, I mean, you got to look at the Kansas City Chiefs. 2-0 start, beating the Cowboys. I understand it's the Cowboys, but Alex Smith playing well, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries, 57 yards. He's running a little bit there too. I gotta believe Kansas City. They'll make a run just like with Miami here, but there's no jumping the Broncos. It's you're trying to get to take the second spot there in the division in the AFC West. I'm sorry. I think Kansas City, they're a very likely contender. Oakland has Terrell Pryor. I don't see Oakland making the playoffs. San Diego, that collapse against Houston, glaring red flags there for that team. Kansas City opening up 2-0, legitimate shot, I believe, for a good 9, maybe even 10 wins this season.
Well, with those 2 surprise 2-0 teams, got Miami going up against Atlanta this week would certainly it would make them seem like a legitimate team if they got that win. And then Kansas City tonight playing against Philadelphia Eagles, a couple of big games right there for the 2-0 teams. after Kansas City came off the 17-16 win against Dallas, it could really legitimize these two teams if they got those wins to go to 3-0.
I mean, for Kansas City, a huge victory. They can beat the Eagles. Andy Reid against his former team. That momentum shifts because, as you said, Darius, KC went 2-14 last season. They could open up 3-0 this season. I mean, the fans there, it's like, he's the savior now. Keep him. And if Andy Reid keeps on doing this, I mean, I think he's motivated by he got subbed by the Eagles. That organization shoved him out the door. He did so many good things for him. Now at Kansas City, he may try to get those 10-win seasons. It might make a run in the playoffs in a few years.
Yeah, of course, Andy Reid, the winningest coach in Philadelphia Eagles history. So it was really sad to see him leave the Eagles, but it's Kansas City's gain. They're 2-0, looking to go to 3-0 tonight. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have some NFL predictions for you. You'll see what Jeff has up his sleeve this week as we're watching the National Hour here on Buckeye TV. And we're back here on the National Hour. It's great to have you folks watching here on Buckeye TV. And we got some more NFL for you. We've got some good news and some bad news for Ohio area. So we'll start with the good news. Terrell Pryor, former Ohio State quarterback, got his first career win. I mean, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he got his first career win, technically.
It's great for Terrell Pryor. I mean, happy he got the win, but as you said, Darius, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. He beats the Colts or he beats maybe the Patriots. You start going, this is for real, but it's Jacksonville.
Let's not rag on the Jaguars too much. They're still an NFL team. They still have NFL players out there, but for Terrell Pryor, it wasn't the greatest of games. It was 15 of 24, 126 yards, ran for 50 yards, but overall, getting the win as a starting quarterback, that's your ultimate job. And he got this win for the Oakland Raiders against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that team moves to 1-1.
And you said that right, Darius. A 1-1 start for Oakland. Jackson. It's this whole. I can't get over the fact though. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this team. It wasn't too long ago that Tom Coughlin was there, and this team was doing really well with Mark Brunell, and that quickly they had the fall from grace there. It's really like they might not be there much longer. It's just weird saying that Jacksonville a few years, 5-6 years ago, was like playoff team. They had Scobie there.
Oh yeah, they had David Garrard. I mean, Bruce Jones-Drew was a young back.
I mean, this team had such great potential, but they really just literally fallen off the map here in the land of football.
Yeah, it's been some sad developments for both of those franchises, Jacksonville and Oakland. But it's good to see Terrell Pryor getting his first win in the NFL. So good for him, moving to 1-1 on his career and in this season. So Kenny Britt could be coming back. Receiver for the Tennessee Titans would be huge for the Titans, who have looked pretty decent early in the season to get a big play receiver like him back.
Especially, they open up the win against Pittsburgh. Britt comes back. Looking at the AFC South right now, you have the Colts, who just came off the loss to Miami. It's really the Houston Texans running the show there. But looking around the conferences, there's a legitimate chance. You look at the AFC East. You have the Patriots who are going to be limping in there. Really, a lot of pieces left in the NFL for a potential playoff race. I know we're only 2 weeks in, but it's not too soon to think about if we get a couple wins together, especially a very healthy team back, you might be able to make that playoff run for Tennessee. The past couple of years, very turbulent. A good year this year could bring back everything down there in Nashville.
And speaking of the New England Patriots, a couple of injury updates for them as well. Danny Amendola is going to be out for at least the next week. Could be out as many as 4 to 5 weeks, but it's a groin pull, so it's really going to be whatever he feels is good for him to get back in there. But the guy that they probably will be getting back this week, Rob Gronkowski. Big old Gronk. They're going to have him back in the passing game. And Tom Brady, I tell you what, he's probably missed that dude so much. To have him back in the passing game is really going to help out New England. Especially
looking at what the Patriots, last season this team was stacked. And this season I look at the roster, I'm like, who are these people at the Patriots? Where's Wes Welker? He left for Denver. And really everything around Tom Brady, that he's been surrounded by great players, it's now a bunch of young guys who really have been in the limelight that much, and now they are. But looking at, you have Gronkowski back, that's your go-to, your bruising guy who gets the ball and just takes off trucking for the end zone. For Tom Brady, I think he's missed him the most because that receiving core, some issues with the New York Jets to open up the season 2 weeks ago. Now it's one of these things where if Gronkowski's back, just fire away at him, just have him try to get the yardage in the receiving end.
And it'll be interesting to see if he is like the workhorse in the passing game, because he is going to be about 50-50 coming back. So he's not going to be 100% playing, but he really is missed with Danny Amendola going down to injury. Of course, everything that happened over the offseason with Hernandez. And then you also have Julian Edelman in there right now as the leading receiver. to have
Yeah,
Gronk,
it's-
it really is good in the passing game for the Patriots. For Tom Brady to get something in there.
Yeah,
All
but really, it's just the whole Patriots situation. It's this team, Super Bowls. You think Patriots of late. You think
Oh, yeah.
Vinatieri's game-winning field goal against the Rams. You think game-winning field goal with the Patriots. Tom Brady has always been surrounded by great guys. Now there's nothing, and it's just weird seeing how like in 1 year the entire NFL landscape has changed. You had a Pittsburgh team that was good, Baltimore that was good, New England who are all stacked. Now they've lost their muster in less than a year here.
Yeah, so one other injury update is Steven Jackson. He's going to be out for the next game against Miami, Atlanta, and Miami playing this weekend. And Jackson, who's been a perennial 1,000-yard rusher in St. Louis, playing his first year in Atlanta, is going to be out. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Falcons do without their number one running back going on and taking the 2-0 Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, for Miami, this is a big marquee game for them. You know Steven Jackson's not going to be playing there. If Miami can get something going, for Atlanta to lose this one, I see it. But for Miami, 3-0 start is something they haven't had in a while. Momentum shifting greatly down there for the Dolphin faithful, and really they haven't seen 3-0 starts that many times in the 2000s. So really, big game for Miami. They can lose it, they're not out of it, but they win it. This team could be for real.
So we've gone most of the show without getting to it, but finally we are going to beat that dead horse. Trent Richardson has been traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Indianapolis Colts for a first-round pick in 2014. The Colts really gained a great running back, but for the Browns side of it, losing Trent Richardson, one of the only key cogs in the offensive game, and an offensive team that was struggling as it was, losing him, and it almost looks like they're giving it in. 0-2 at this point, and looks like they're packing it in for 2013.
I try stalling with the whole Miami Steven Jackson thing because I'm like, I can't. Cleveland fans can only take so much, and to hear that Trent Richardson is now shipped out of town to Indianapolis, it's the poor Cleveland faithful, really. You had so many quarterbacks since the team came back. You had Tim Couch, who opened up the promise. This guy could be the guy that brings the team back. Nothing. Then you had Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn. The list goes on and on and on. And now, 2 weeks into the season this year, Brandon Weeden out, and now you trade probably the guy who was the workhorse.
He was the offense.
He was the only thing you had. It's like, why are you playing football? It's like you're losing everybody. You're trading everybody. It's just not working for the Cleveland Browns right now. It hasn't been working since the 2002 year when they made the playoffs.
Yeah, but for the Indianapolis Colts, they now have Andrew Luck, the first pick from 2012, and the third pick from 2012 in Trent Richardson. So really good pickup for the Colts getting big old Trent Richardson.
I mean, it's an excellent pickup for the Colts because now they have a bruising running back. You have Andrew Luck who can pass the ball. For the Colts, it's the kind of weapons you need to make a decent playoff run, and maybe in 4 or 5 years, maybe a Super Bowl run. But really for the Colts, they're past the days of Edgerrin James and Peyton Manning. This is the new era, and it's Richardson and Luck. The sky's the limit for the success there, especially they get 1 or 2 guys down the line, maybe the receiving core or maybe a tight end or something. This could be a very scary Colts team, maybe 3, 4, 5 seasons, and another Super Bowl could be in the making.
It'll be interesting to see what goes on with these two teams down the stretch. It'll be looking like the Colts and Browns going in 2 opposite directions. So we'll get on to some NFL picks for this weekend, starting with tonight's game, Kansas City at Philadelphia. A couple of storylines in this one. It's Andy Reid returning to Philadelphia for the first time as a visiting head coach. Also, Donovan McNabb is going to be honored before this game in Philadelphia. So a lot for Eagles fans to cheer or boo about this coming night. So what do you think in this game, Chiefs, Eagles?
I'm an Andy Reid supporter. I think he'll go back to his old home. I think it's going to be one of those situations where he goes, I used to be here. I'm going to show them how badly I was to that, how great I was to that team. Come back and with the big marquee win against that Eagles team, I think that would be like the perfect amount of redemption for Andy Reid. A big win on the road at his old place, that's huge. And for KC, that's extremely huge. And they could have a pretty good run at 3-0 start, and we look forward to the 4-0 start.
Eagles fan I may be, but I'm also picking the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think the Chiefs' defense is a lot improved upon last year, and this is actually the number 1 ranked passing defense right now. And Philadelphia Eagles' offense may be good, but their defense is not. So I do think it's a mismatch with Kansas City going against the Eagles. As long as Chiefs slow down the Eagles, they should be able to win that one pretty easily. Green Bay at Cincinnati. That's going to be an interesting game coming up this Sunday. It would be a huge win for Cincinnati, and Green Bay really needs this game to get some momentum going. Packers, Bengals, who you got, Jeff?
Games in Cincinnati, and the Bengals beginning of the year looked really good, but after watching that Pittsburgh game, I'm not so sure. I think Green Bay, they come with a big win against Washington. I expect a big one in Cincinnati, too.
I'm going with the Green Bay as well. I mean, you have A.J. Green for the Bengals. That's about it. Giovanni Bernard. But you look at the Green Bay Packers, so many weapons, and the best quarterback in the game with Aaron Rodgers, going with Green Bay as well. Houston at Baltimore. This is going to be one where could see Ed Reed at least back on the field for the Baltimore Colts in that stadium. But it's going to be wearing a road jersey. So he's going to be with Houston. May not play, but he'll at least be there. Who do you have in this one?
It's shaping up to be like the redemption weekend of sorts. You had Andy Reid going back to his former place in Philly. Now you have Ed Reed going to Baltimore, and I think with that kind of passion, that kind of redemption feeling there, I gotta go with Houston. AFC North has just absolutely struggled this year. Baltimore had a ton of problems with Cleveland. Houston's a pretty good team. They came back to beat San Diego. I believe that they can get a pretty decent, sizable victory against Baltimore in M.T. Bank Stadium.
I'm also going to go with Houston in this one. I just think that Matt Schaub has been playing really well this season, and waiting for Arian Foster to have that huge breakout game. This could be it against a depleted Baltimore defense. Atlanta at Miami. If Miami wins, they're for real. But Atlanta really needs this one to keep them in the thick of things with the NFC South. Some talent in that division. What do you have in this one?
This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with Miami on this one. I think Miami at home, they get the win, 3-0, and just like the KC Chiefs, if they win, looking for that 4-0 start, and the sky's the limit at that point for that Miami team.
I'm going to go with Atlanta in this one. I think the passing game is just too strong. Really quick, give me a couple words. Indianapolis, San Francisco, Luck, Kaepernick. Who you got?
Kaepernick.
Kaepernick. I'm going to go Kaepernick as well. That's going to do it for the NFL segment, and we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the wild card update, and we're going to have the final stories for you here on the National Hour. And we're back here on the National Hour. I'm Darius Thigpen.
And I'm Jeffrey Hammersley.
And it's great to have you folks joining us here for the final segment of the National Hour. We'll start with a little bit of baseball wild card update as it just continues to be crazy in the American League. Tampa Bay and Texas are holding on to the lead for the 2 wild card spots right now. The Tribe, the Cleveland Indians are half a game back. Baltimore is a game back. The Yankees are 2.5 games back. And lo and behold, Kansas City Royals are 2.5 games back as well. Jeff, it is just getting nuts right now.
The Royals,
the
2.5. Wow. But really, for the Royals being 2.5 games back, there is still some baseball left. Anything can happen, but Terry Francona and those Cleveland Indians, just a half game off the pace of Texas and Tampa. Cleveland, they lost Trent Richardson in football, but I think, I really believe and I really hope they can get that one spot in the playoffs because Texas, they went from division tie leaders with Oakland. Now they've slipped back a little bit. So that could be the one place where Cleveland could find their way into the playoffs with Tampa Bay in the wild card.
And, I mean, it's starting to feel kind of like a baseball town because the fans can feel it. They're getting excited in Cleveland. The Indians are right there. It's for the taking. And Texas has really been slumping here in the second half, late in the second half, at the wrong time on August and September, going into October. So it would be perfect for the Indians to get back in it.
Really, look at what Texas did. You can have a great first half of the year, but it's that second half that absolutely matters. If you fall apart, we've seen it before with like the teams like the Mets. They have a big 10-14 game lead. They blow it down the home stretch. I think for a team like Texas, you're losing ground. You see Cleveland's gaining ground. I think that will be just enough where they'll slip out of the playoff chase with maybe a couple days left, and Cleveland will shoot their way right back into that second playoff spot, which is a few games remaining.
And a couple of talented teams right behind Cleveland. Got Baltimore right there, the young talent Manny Machado, and Chris Davis just cannot stop hitting home runs right now. You've got the Yankees 2.5 games back. As old as they may be, they are finding a way. And the Kansas City Royals, who do have some good pitching with some young pitchers out there, including James Shields, who was an AL Cy Young candidate just a couple years ago.
Really, like Shields, who's a really good pitcher there for KC, but in the grand scheme of things, you have 1, 2, Cleveland be the third team, Baltimore 4, Yankees 5, 6 teams all within 2.5 games of each other. This is why I love baseball. From that point, from like home run derby, All-Star weekend on, it's like, well, who is going to be in the playoffs? Who's going to fall apart? The big thing is how exciting this final week, the final 2 weeks of the season will be when you know you have 6 teams all compacted into like 2.5 games. Something has to give. Something has to give with this competition. You have with Tampa Bay, Texas, Cleveland, Baltimore. It's exciting to watch.
And it's just going to be like pretty much a free-for-all for these teams going down the stretch. It's going to be fun to watch. National League, not quite as exciting. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati have pretty much clinched the wild card there after the phenomenal year that Pittsburgh has been having. Cincinnati has been playing really well, but St. Louis, those three teams have just separated themselves from the pack in the NL.
Yeah, they're really looking at the Nationals. They've come back into the picture. They're within 5-6 games, but it's one of those things. You have three extraordinarily hot teams in St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. I've had a tough time seeing any one of those three teams having a meltdown this late in the season. It's for me being a Nats fan. It's like, oh, I can believe a little bit, but when you have those three teams ahead, it's crushing dreams, is what it is.
So it's now time for that time in the show. Time for the final stories. We're going to start with Jeff Hammersley.
All right. Woody Hayes once said, "You win with people." And recently, I've come to realize how important those words are. You can't freeze out friends when things go astray, nor can you shut down from the world when your world goes upside down. What you gotta do is fight for something you believe in, and in the end, everything will turn out the way it's supposed to be. However, there is one caveat to this. Rarely does a one-man army end up in the promised land of success alone. You need people, but just not any person or persons for that matter. You need your closest friends to help you on your way up there, whether they are from La Plata, Maryland, or from Willard, Ohio, or from a small town about 45 minutes away from Cincinnati. You need them to help you catch your dreams, and vice versa. When you realize how important friendships can be, cherish them. Only at that point will you realize and begin to win with people, and you are well on your way at winning in the game of life.
It's doomsday in Cleveland. Every time you think of the Browns and they can't possibly do any worse, they sure do shock the heck out of you. Cleveland Browns mailed in the 2013 season by sending lone franchise bright spot running back Trent Richardson to the Indianapolis Colts for a bag of potatoes and chewing gum. Okay, so they actually got the Colts 2014 first round pick, but they may as well have given away Trent for free. The Browns are the same franchise that in recent years have passed on talents like A.J. Green, Julio Jones, Colin Kaepernick, failing to trade up for RG3, and passing on Russell Wilson 3 times. But they did trade up for senior citizen Brandon Weeden. Browns fans apparently have to hope that front office is going to make these 2014 picks work as they tank for Teddy or clown for Clowney. As an Eagles fan, I can appreciate how hard it is to get Super Bowls. Philly currently has no championships, but a couple of losses in the Super Bowl and an infinite amount of NFC Championship game losses. Still, every season I can at least plan on my team trying to compete on the field and not mailing it in 120 minutes into the NFL season. Browns fans, I weep for you. That is going to do it for us here on the National Hour. I'm Darius Thigpen.
And I'm Jeffrey Hammersley.
You can always check us out on YouTube. We have our own page there on YouTube. You can follow us on the Lantern at Buckeye TV. And, of course, you can watch us or listen to us on Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio, OhioStateSports.net, where we'll bring you some of the football coverage, which you can also get on the Lantern and BuckeyeTV.com. Jeff, do you have anything else for us?
Football Saturday, Ohio State, Florida A&M, kickoff noon. I'll be there for SGSR, Darius too. The countdown to Saturday begins.
We'll see you next time on the National Hour.
This is Manny Wilson speaking for the National Hour, a Buckeye TV television production.